As always, I want to make the intro to this video as short as possible. So let's just get things started. There are 6 chapters in this video and the topics are ranked in order of seriousness. Because there are parts of this video that are more lighthearted, but as always, when it comes to things like disappearances, and in this case, murder, I want to be as respectful as possible. This video will be broken up into 2 parts as you voted for on Instagram. I don't usually plug my Instagram at the beginning of the video, but you can follow me on Instagram at @cleverhaunts. It's a great way to tell me video topics you want me to cover and vote on things like this. So in part 1, I'll be going over these topics, and in part 2, I will be going over topics. I usually post every other week, but part 2 will be out next week, so you don't have to wait. So let's talk about Yosemite for a second. Yosemite is 747,956 acres and is as big as Rhode Island. 90% of Yosemite is considered wilderness, meaning you can go camp, backpack, and hike, but there are no services, facilities, or roads. Pretty much on your own. Yosemite does have the most disappearances of national parks, and originally I was like, maybe that's because it's the biggest, because it's fucking huge. But when I googled it, the top 8 parks are all in the millions of acres. Multiple millions of acres. This video was stupidly hard to research for no good reason. But let's just get into it. This section is so disappointing, so let's just get it out of the way first. Here's the thing about Yosemite Bigfoot and Yosemite UFOs. It seems like everybody's seen them, but nobody's talking about it. Like, I just keep seeing things say like, there are a lot of Bigfoot and UFO sightings in Yosemite, but nobody can show me the facts. And most of the Bigfoot stories boil down to, I saw Bigfoot, Bigfoot saw me, Bigfoot ran away. That's it. It's like everybody's just seeing Bigfoot in passing. One story I was able to find comes from 2004. A Yosemite worker, job not specified, was camping at Lake Vernon for the night, when suddenly he heard loud footsteps running down the hill right towards his tent. The worker said he was so scared he truly thought he was going to die and was just deciding whether he wanted to die in the tent or outside of the tent. But being familiar with wildlife, he decided he might as well give living a try. So he got out of the tent and tried to make himself as big as possible and screamed as loud as he could, only for a blood-curdling scream to come right back at him in his face. After screaming, Bigfoot ran right back into the woods, and the man was able to make out only a few details. He said Bigfoot was tall with black fur and weighed about 600 pounds. In a similar story from 2017, some hikers were camping when one of them got up to pee in the middle of the night. They heard some rustling from where they had placed their trash bag about 100 feet away from their tent. At first, he just saw a black figure, figured it was a bear, and started screaming at it, hoping to scare it away, until the thing stood up. He says at its full height, the creature was 8 feet tall with a chest as broad as a meter stick and shiny black fur, which sounds very similar to the story we heard from 2017. Other than that, I was only able to find the most bare bones of reports. January 6, 1969, within 50 feet of a 12-foot Bigfoot with 20-inch tracks in the plain north of Yosemite Park. They took pictures, but I could not find them on the internet. May 30th, 1979 sees an 8-foot Bigfoot dash across US 395 near Bridgeport. Todd Wilhelm reported a road crossing sighting of 2 Bigfoot creatures on the eastern slope of the Sierras in August of 1998. Again, I looked these up and could not find any other information on them, which was super nice and wonderful and helpful. Even more disappointing than the Bigfoot sightings are the UFO sightings. I found 4 sightings while looking for UFO reports in the area. The first being the most famous report, but I can't sit here and tell you I think it's a UFO. It technically is, right, because it's an unidentified flying object, but I don't think it's other earthly in any way or mysterious in any way. It looks very much just like some kind of rocket. One that was clearly a reflection or just straight up a fake picture, and one was a video that the creators who posted it said it was fake and they were just like testing out some equipment, having fun, And all of the comments were like, this is clearly fake. This is bullshit. Nobody should think that's real. It's clearly fake. Even though the creators never tried to pass it off as real. The last and probably the only true information that we have is just people saying that they've seen strange lights in the sky in Yosemite. So let's move on to actual strange shit from Yosemite. I'm very excited. I finally have a reason to talk about Fresno Nightcrawlers. They were first captured in Fresno in 2010 by a man named Jose, who put up security cameras because dogs kept getting in his yard. Instead, he captured the most non-threatening creature. The video was captured on an old security camera, and the video that we have is a video of that video, meaning it is low quality. But it has also baffled many paranormal investigators because they can't seem to find a way to debunk it. In March of 2011, in Yosemite National Park, they were captured again by a camera put up to catch some vandals. Instead, they caught two 4-foot-tall nightcrawlers just taking a stroll through the park. There's not a lot of other information about nightcrawlers that is true. Other videos taken of them are iffy and whatnot, but they are just the funnest, cutest, most innocent little guys. This story actually comes straight from the person who experienced it, Christopher Sonnen, who owns the blog The Last Adventurer, and comes from when he worked for the Yosemite National Park Service Backcountry Division in 1998. I'm going to use his first name, not because I don't respect him, but because trying to say his last name twists my tongue, and I'm already clearly having a problem with that today. In August, Sonnen was assigned a patrol loop that left from the O'Shaughnessy Dam, I hope I'm saying that correctly, in the Hetch Hetchy region of the park, and went into the northern portion of Yosemite. It is a loop that had very few visitors on it because it was 10 to 20 miles away from the road. This patrol basically included him hiking about 9 miles a day, taking notes on anything that he saw, setting up camp at night, and checking it on the radio in the morning. On day 3 of the hike, he notes he hadn't seen anybody in almost 36 hours, which I think just adds to the creep factor of this whole thing. Around noon, he was heading down the trail near Butte Creek when he saw something he assumed was a rock in the middle of the trail up ahead. When he got closer, though, he noticed it looked furry, so he jogged up to it, and that is when he found it was a deer head. At first, he was just kind of like, that's weird, but he's a park ranger, circle of life, he didn't think much of it. But when he looked closer, he noticed a few red flags. The first being, it was fresh. The second being, there were no tracks leading up to the head, and it looked like the path had been brushed clean. When he flipped over the head with his boot, he found that there was no way an animal could have done this. The cuts were clean and neat and looked like they had been done with something flat and sharp. As he began to panic, he realized there was no blood near the head, meaning whoever did this did it somewhere else and then deliberately placed the head in the middle of the trail. Despite being really freaked out, he did his park ranger duties, surveyed the area, took notes, checked off the trail to see if there was a body, took a picture, and buried the head. Then, half a mile later up the trail, found another less fresh deer head, again, right in the middle of the trail. He says at this point his whole body was screaming for him to run, and I just want to put it out here that on this channel, gut feelings are valid. So he buries the second deer head and continues on, only to find another half mile later is a third deer head. This one is so decomposed, it's actually almost a skeleton. He says that night when he stopped to make camp, he didn't actually make camp. Went off trail, found a rock outcropping, pressed his back to it, and didn't turn on any lights and sat there all night staring outward. He was so freaked out, he didn't want to do anything that would draw somebody to him or make it easier to find him. He didn't sleep that night, he didn't sleep the next night, and then the day after that, he finished his patrol. Which, by the way, I couldn't hike 9 miles a day on my best day, and this guy hiked 18 with no sleep, so props. That's really all there is to say about the deer story because nothing really ever came of it. He made a report about it, but nothing happened. I have a few theories, obviously. Let's start with this one. Aliens. They've been in the area before. I mean, not aliens, but UFOs have been in the area before. They are known for making clean, precise cuts and leaving no blood behind. I don't think it is, but it could be hunters. Even though hunting in the park is illegal, that doesn't mean it doesn't happen. And my problem with this theory is the fact that he was roughly 30 miles away from the nearest road. So if someone did hunt a deer and kill it and gut it, probably, and clean it, how would they get the body back to their car? Unless the hunter was cleaning it, cutting up the meat, packing it, and like putting it in an ice chest and then carrying it back. Even then the ice would melt within like a day, and there's no way you're doing 30 miles in a day. So I think the hunting theory is extremely unlikely, but I had to mention it because if I don't, somebody's going to mention it. There you go. There is one theory about this that I like, but it's connected to something I'm going to talk about in part 2, so I'm just going to talk about it then. As far as hauntings and curses, there's a lot going on in Yosemite, so I can't actually cover all of them. So I'm going to cover the big ones that I found people talked about the most. The Yosemite Cemetery is home to about 35 to 45 pioneer graves. I couldn't find a lot of reports of haunted shit going on in the cemetery, but Christopher Sonnin, the last adventurer of the Deer Story, did mention that while working in Yosemite, he lived in a house near the cemetery and the lights would go on and off by themselves. So that's one thing. In that cemetery, a man considered to be the first park ranger is buried. His name is Galen Clark, and he is super cool, and you should Google him. One day, Clark went on a little hike to Grouse Lake, and while he was taking a break on the shore, he heard a distinct wailing cry, somewhat like a puppy when lost. And later that night, he joined some indigenous people at their hunting camp, and he told them what he heard. Here's what happened in Clark's own words. They replied that it was not a dog, that a long time ago an Indian boy had been drowned in the lake, and that every time anyone passed there, he always cried after them, and no one dared to go into the lake, for the boy would catch their legs and pull them down, and they would be drowned. Quick thank you to National Park Traveler for that quote. It's giving very Friday the 13th, very Jason Voorhees, but it's just like a little legend. And I just thought it was cool and I wanted to add that here. So let's move on to Tenaya Canyon, also known as the Bermuda Triangle of Yosemite. It starts with white people coming in and attempting to share the land with the Ahwahnee tribe, who by all accounts were relatively peaceful. Fuck my fucking computer for making my audio sound so horrible in this video. But eventually, the white people got tired of sharing their land with the Ahwahnee and planned to relocate the tribe to Fresno. You know, as if they had any right to force the Ahwahnee off their land. The Ahwahnee, led by Chief Tenaya, were very vocal about the fact that they were not leaving. So they brought in the big guns, led by a man whose name I won't be mentioning, to forcibly remove them. They expected the Ahwahnee to comply and leave out of fear, but instead they stood their ground and violence ensued. In the fight, Chief Tenaya's son was killed, so enraged he cursed the land while standing his ground. And since then, there has been some truth to the curse. There have been more freak accidents in the Tenaya Canyon than there has been in any other part of the park. Some have even claimed to see shadowy figures and hear strange noises. And it got its name, the Bermuda Triangle of Yosemite, because of the disappearances in that area. My favorite haunted location in the park is the Anawi Hotel, named after the Anawi tribe. I would very much like to visit this place. There are a couple of ghosts haunting this hotel. We are going to start with Mary Curie Tressiter. Mary helped design and open the hotel in 1927 and lived in a private apartment on the 6th floor until 1970 when she passed away. That's also where she passed away. Staff and guests frequently report seeing her, although she's not really a scary ghost. She is most known for doing things like folding laundry, tucking in guests, and moving things around their room. A few guests have occasionally reported that they hear her calling them by name, but that's pretty much the creepiest thing she does. There's also a chance that JFK is chilling at the hotel. When JFK visited the hotel, he requested a rocking chair because his back was sore. Or from all the women he funneled in and out of the White House, am I right, ladies? And anyway, even though the rocking chair has since been removed, other rocking chairs on the 3rd floor where he stayed have often been reported to be rocking as if somebody was sitting there. Beyond these ghosts, there are probably more, considering staff often hear disembodied footsteps, other weird noises, and occasionally see random apparitions. Next up for the hauntings, we have another hotel known as the Sierra Sky Ranch, and it is somewhere I very much do not want to visit. Want to know why? It was originally built in 1871 as a sanitarium. Let's all say this together. Stop making places of suffering into other things. It never works out. Fucking bulldoze them and start over. So a lot of tuberculosis patients were placed there and pretty much forgotten. They often lived in horrible conditions and most of them died there. Unsurprisingly, guests report paranormal activity on the reg. The most common report is of ghost children and not only apparitions, which would be bad enough, but you can also hear them playing, giggling, whispering, and running, which I'm all for happy ghosts, but I will never trust anything paranormal that presents as a child, even if it is just a child ghost. I still don't trust it. They are responsible for turning on and off faucets, opening and slamming doors, and trying to take clothes straight out of the hands of guests. At Sierra Sky Ranch, you can also find such ghosts as a woman who basically just lurks around and smells like perfume, a bar patron who kisses patrons on the cheek, which is a huge no for me. There is a ghost from this hotel that I genuinely want to meet. He is a ghost that is described as scowling and paces back and forth on the veranda, and occasionally angrily knocks over furniture. Something about a ghost that's just pissy and doesn't really fuck with people, but makes their presence known by angrily knocking over furniture. Like, I'm expecting just like flipping a chair. Something about that. I would really like to be a part of that. It is the kind of ghost I aspire to be one day. I forgot to record an outro for this video, but my setup has been such a little bitch lately that I don't feel like setting everything up for like just a few seconds, so I'm not going to. Part 2 will be out next week, and I am going to reshoot it because of the audio issues and hopefully get some better audio so it's not as shitty as it was in this video. So I guess I'll see you next week. I'm Clever Haunts, and I guess that's it. Dude, I bodied that one.